Hello and welcome. Happy Thursday. Thank you for being here with us today. I am excited to be discussing another topic around MBA application. We have already moved to the round one cycle of applicants. We'll be having a few more sessions as decisions come out. And for those of you who have already received some decisions from some of the schools you've applied to in round one, I hope you receive wonderful news. And of course, as more decisions come out, even more positive outcomes. Before we dive into today's presentation, just a reminder that this is obviously live in the platforms and I will be answering questions as they come in. Note that you can write your questions in whichever platform you're joining us from, and I will be looking to answer those live. So feel free to write questions that you want clarification around, or questions that you are just considering in terms of your application journey that you want to know. Today's topic is 5 common mistakes that MBA applicants make. That obviously I'm here to discuss, and wanting to make sure that these are some of the mistakes you try to avoid. And of course, you're going to want to integrate this. How this looks like for every person is going to be a little bit different, given, of course, that everyone has their unique narrative, unique stories to capture. If you write the question, just be certain that we will not be posting the question on the video, which means it won't be as a replay with your name on it. I will read the question out loud, but will not be posting it on the screen. In terms of what we will be discussing next, we'll be moving on the round one timeline next week, Thursday, so definitely want to join us. We'll also be hosting a session with GMAT Club on the 19th, so look out for our events coming up on our website. Excellent. So why don't we dive in? As just a quick intro about who I am, who is CA Admissions, what do we do here, so that you have a better understanding of, obviously, why am I talking about the MBA application process? So I'm the founder of CA Admissions, and our focus is to provide tailored coaching to MBA applicants. We work with high achievers who are looking to gain admission to top 20 business schools. And our work in terms of working individually with clients is very much a hands-on approach in terms of coaching applicants with every step or through every step of the way in the application journey. While we have a proven process that works in terms of getting a really strong, putting together a really strong application, of course, there's never a one-size-fits-all. Every story is different, and what we do is really spend time with applicants, getting to know who they are, getting to know their motivations, their experiences, how those have shaped who they are and how they see the world, and help them capture that in a essentially marketing package, which is your application, and help them and navigate that entire journey. It's a very long journey as you go through it. Typically, of course, most applicants just think through the process of until round one, but our work, we work with clients through the entire process, which means interview preparation, decision discussion, scholarship negotiation. How do you prepare before you actually start your MBA program? So it's really comprehensive coaching, and we do it because we know that this is a really important step in your professional journey, and we want to make sure that you have thought through a lot of different components as you make your decisions in your career, but also, of course, you are presenting your experiences in the right way to business schools. Today, our focus is going to be on the most common mistakes that applicants make in the application preparation journey, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some actionable fixes that you can go through in terms of putting together a strong application for round 1 or round 2, depending on when you're watching this, whether it's this live today or a replay in the future. So let's start with the 5 biggest mistakes that MBA applicants make. These are errors I've seen time and time again, and they can definitely significantly weaken your application and your presentation to business schools. And I'll break down each one in terms of why it's a problem, and then discuss a little bit on the fixes that you can make. Of course, recognize that the entire journey is individual in terms of your experiences. There's no such thing as the same story, even if you're coming in with the same background. So, if you look at most applicants at business schools are either coming from financial services or consulting, which means a lot of applicants are applying from those spaces. None of them have the same exact story in terms of what they're bringing to the table. So that's what I mean that, yes, you may have similar experiences, but the way you present, the way you think about your experiences is going to be uniquely yours. So let's start with number 1. So the most common application mistakes, we're going to start with the weak goals. It's important to remember that a well-defined career goal is actually quite essential for business school. It's becoming more and more a requirement in the application journey. I have friends who have obtained MBAs a long time ago, and they had a little more flexibility in terms of what they say their goals are. Whereas now business schools have a lot of applicants who are very clear about what they want, and they're looking, of course, to see that you have clarity in where you're going. So schools definitely want to know why you need an MBA and how it fits your professional journey. One of the biggest mistakes applicants make in the goal segment is being too vague, saying, I want to work in finance, or I want to be a consultant. That's not essentially enough in terms of putting together a strong application. So another issue in terms of goals that I see quite often is having unrealistic goals. Schools want to see that your career aspirations make sense given your background and given your skill set. So if you are interested in private equity or venture capital and you're not coming in from investment banking, that is an unrealistic goal in terms of what's possible for you post MBA. So that's what I mean, unrealistic goals. They have to be in connection to your past. So here's how to fix this. Essentially, you're going to use the SMART framework. So this is specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound goals presentation. We can definitely, there's an element in our YouTube. If you go to our YouTube channel, we talk about how to create goals. Start with the why. You can definitely watch that after this one in terms of supporting you in crafting goals. Your career goals should be clear in terms of showcasing a clear career path. So this involves where you are now in terms of your career. Why do you need an MBA in terms of where does it help you go post MBA, as well as long term, of course, what impact you're looking to make. The next element is, of course, poor essays execution, essentially poor essay development. Your essays are where you bring your story to life, but many applicants fall into the trap of writing generic surface level responses. They sometimes are heavily reliant on ChatGPT, and it's of course very clear that this is not a well thought out response. Some common mistakes obviously include failing to connect personal experiences to career goals, if it's a goals essay, not showcasing self-awareness, if it's an area that you need to demonstrate, areas of the strength, but also of growth, or one of the, I will say, most boring essay styles that I read is a resume style essay that doesn't reveal personality. It just like tells what's already in the resume in an essay format. That is a missed opportunity. A strong essay should be a mix of storytelling, introspection, and clear alignment with the school's values and with the school's culture. So the way you can fix this in terms of essay writing, you're going to obviously want to have a very clear narrative. I always say that you need one story for one essay. And I know sometimes applicants panic when I say this, because how can I tell my entire story? That's where drafting and redrafting comes into play. And you want to make sure that you give yourself the time to do this effectively. But in terms of macro level structure, there has to be a challenge, actions that you've taken, results that you've had in relation to solving the problem or solving the challenge, and then a reflection piece, especially if this was a learning moment for you. What did you learn from this experience, essentially? Most importantly, always you want to tailor your essay to the specific program, even if the questions are similar between schools. Copy pasting will not work. This is not Common App in an American undergraduate school application. You definitely need individual school-specific essays across the board, which of course means you need time to develop those effectively. Okay, so the third mistake is underestimating the importance of extracurriculars and leadership experiences. So admission committees are looking beyond your professional achievements. They want to see leadership, they want to see impact, they want to see a well-rounded applicant. You are essentially helping make a well-rounded classroom, and therefore they're looking for that in your application. A common mistake is only listing activities without demonstrating leadership or impact. It's not just about obviously joining a club, but what you've done within the club. So if you're a member of a club but haven't taken any action in leadership, well, that's not going to really move the needle much. So the way you fix this is by quantifying your extracurricular contributions. So instead of saying volunteer at a nonprofit, you're going to say something like led a 10-person team to raise $50,000 for education initiatives for Club X. So you want to be very specific in terms of your achievement and your leadership in the various different areas. And why is this important is that business schools want leaders. Even if your leadership is outside of your work experiences, which oftentimes is, given the 5-year work experience post-college that most of applicants will have, it's important to capture where you've made a difference, because that helps them understand that you have leadership potential for your future career. The fourth mistake is weak or misaligned letters of recommendation. So strong recommendation can make a huge difference in your application, but many applicants don't really put enough thought into choosing their recommenders or really guiding their recommenders. So choosing someone, which I often have this conversation, should I choose someone with this, beautiful title, this C-suite executive, or should I choose someone who doesn't necessarily have the fancy degrees or the C-suite level job title? Choosing someone with a fancy title who barely knows you is actually quite a big mistake. Schools are more interested in depth and specificity than they are about the title of the person that is recommending you. The way you can fix this is by looking in your network, in the leaders that you've had, and select someone who has directly worked with you or directly supervised you and can speak to your specific skills, your specific contributions. That is actually what helps your application. And then the second thing that you should be doing in terms of fixing this misaligned letters of recommendation that I often see is help your recommenders by providing them with key talking points or examples of impact that they have witnessed you, but remember that you're not the only person they supervise, so they may have forgotten about those things. A good recommendation letter is a letter recommendation that supports your theme in your application. If you are telling a narrative of an entirely different person than what the recommender is telling, that is a misaligned letter recommendation, which means it will only confuse the admission committee when they're reading your full application. And then the fifth common mistake is a rushed application. It's very, very easy to spot a rushed application. It means it's sloppy essays, inconsistent messaging, last-minute changes that hurt your chances in terms of really having a lot of areas that you haven't thought through. And why is this? It's because most applicants underestimate the amount of time it takes to craft a really strong application. So the way you can fix this is having a understanding in terms of how long things take. So the first part is to really develop a detailed timeline for your application process. Know all the steps that you will need to take, and then make a timeline as to when you're going to tackle them. This is not a college essay that you write the night before you submit your paper. This is, a really important step in your career journey that if you don't give yourself enough time, you risk not getting into the schools that you're looking to apply to, which delays your career journey. Also recognize that you will need to have multiple revisions in terms of your materials. You should be getting feedback from people, whether that's if you're working with a coach, a mentor, a trusted friend who knows the process. You need to account for them as well, because of course they will need time to review your materials. They won't be able to do it, the same day that you want them to. And especially if it's a lot of material, you will obviously need a lot more time in getting their help to guide you through this process. And then make sure that every component of your application reinforces a cohesive story about who you are, why you are a great fit for the MBA program. And this, of course, comes into that weaving of the story, your experiences, your achievement, your leadership, and a lot of different factors. It's important, obviously, to understand that there's no single factor that determines admission. Admission teams talk about this all the time, that the admission process is holistic, and it's a holistic review of your entire application in relation to what you bring to the table and what is the class that they're looking to put together in terms of the diversity of experiences. How do you match, essentially? So there are 4 key areas that admission teams look at. Your academic readiness, which is shown from your GMAT, your GRE, either one, your GPA, coursework that you've enrolled in. So someone who is an engineer will obviously have a more challenging coursework than someone who is perhaps in the humanities area. So obviously that is, evaluation of your academic readiness. Career potential. So this means your work experiences that you've had, your career progression. Have you had promotions? Have you grown in your career? Even if it's not an official promotion, your leadership, whether that's in your professional job, professional experiences, or your extracurriculars, the impact that you've had in every single area of your life, excluding personal. There's not much personal that goes into this application. And then they're also looking at your fit with the program. This means alignment with school's values and your contributions to the community. These are important pieces that they are looking for in your application. And then also your communication. So these are soft factors, so qualitative components. So your communication skills. This comes through in the way you present your experiences, which means your resume, your essays, the way you present yourself in videos. A lot of schools have video components as part of their application. And also in your interview, how well can you tell a story? Because you have to remember, whichever industry you're coming in from, there will be people in your classroom who haven't had that experience. Therefore, they don't understand your individual industry jargon, and your communication skills are being evaluated from the perspective of, can you communicate to someone who is not in your field, and can they understand you, of course. Self-awareness, where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses in terms of areas for development? That is very big in business school circles, and you need to be able to obviously capture the right balance. And also your ability to collaborate. Everything in business school, at least at top 20 business schools, it's about collaborative effort, collaborative work. And of course, they want to know that you'll be able to do that, and that will show up in the way you tell stories and the way you, in the experiences that you've had. In terms of your application, you have to keep all of these elements in mind as you're putting an application. And that's why I say that a last-minute application is actually huge in a huge problem in this process. So obviously now we know common mistakes and how schools evaluate an applicant. Let's talk a little bit about the how to strengthen your application. First and foremost, you want to have a strategic positioning. Clearly connect your background, your MBA, and your future goals. So avoiding this generic aspirations or being thinking that you are presenting yourself as extremely ambitious, but it's unrealistic essentially. Make sure that your essays are really refined. Focus on authenticity, self-awareness, and a clear and compelling narrative. So obviously authenticity in terms of, don't try to write the same thing as everyone else online is doing. Really be authentic to you, but keep in mind, of course, who your audience is. If you are a marketer here and you know that you're always presenting your experiences, presenting your product, right, to an audience that is looking for something. So the same thing here in business school application, your audience is the MBA admission team. So be aware of who you're presenting your experiences to. Obviously, strong letters of recommendation. So choosing people who can provide detailed, personalized insights about you. Remember that if you are asking someone to write multiple letters of recommendation, you want to give them ample time. If you are asking them to write from scratch with you not giving them a lot of content, you want to give them a couple of months in terms of preparing, because obviously this is volunteer work for them and they have other responsibilities as well. So definitely keep that in mind. Also, timeline. Building that application timeline is actually quite critical. There are many applicants who have already are well on their journey at this point in preparing for their round 1 application. So you want to start now, right? Now is the right time, especially if you're applying for round 1, but even for round 2, you know, there's elements that you need to take to work through in order to be ready to apply for that period of time. So have a structured plan for your essays. When are you going to sit for the GMAT or the GRE? How much time you need to study. Know that there's also going to be interview components in this process. And then by implementing these strategies, you're obviously going to significantly boost the presentation of your experiences in terms of adding value. And of course, this kind of always depends on the output of all of these efforts. And obviously the main goal is to get an offer of admission, hopefully with a lot of scholarship. So it makes this process much easier. If you are looking to get support in this process, we have a very personalized approach to this process, to the application guidance, structure rather. So if you're looking for, first and foremost, if you're looking for personalized feedback, so profile evaluation, we do have the profile evaluation quiz. So it's a 2-part process where you get to receive a score in terms of how you score in your competitiveness, and then you get a report from me that gives you more details around, what where your strengths and where your weaknesses lie in your profile that you will need to take into account. in terms of before, as you put together an application. If you are looking for more detailed support, one-on-one support, you can definitely reach out for a consultation. We can talk through what are you looking for in terms of a coach, and then what we provide in terms of our services, and find the match in terms of, making sure that we are in alignment. We work with a limited number of applicants every single round, because it's a very hands-on approach to coaching. So this process of a discussion is also to evaluate if we're a good fit, because for example, if we're working together from now for round 1, we would be working together from March until February of 2026. That is our commitment in our comprehensive process, and going through the entire journey with you. So obviously, we want to make sure that on both ends it's a good match in terms of obviously commitment. Okay, so I'm going to move to questions. We've had some questions that have come in through the registration form, and we will be, of course, also, I would love to get your questions from whichever platform you're joining us. In the meantime, let's go with questions that have come in. There's one that was quite interesting. So the first question that we got is how to be distinctive when everyone who follows your advice will be very similar. I love this question. Yes, if everyone is following my advice, there's definitely going to be a more competitive applicant pool in terms of stronger application. However, everyone has their own journey, and this means that everyone's story, even though you follow the same advice, if you're taking into account all those pieces, you are actually going to be distinctive, because everything that I talk about in terms of how to build your story is about being introspective and diving into your own personal experiences. So even though you're going to have a really strong resume, the content of that resume is going to be uniquely yours. And that's where authenticity and that's where distinctiveness comes into play, because you have taken time to actually reflect on your experiences, on your contributions, on your impact in a way that showcases your unique thinking process. Excellent. Next question. What are the biggest essay red flags that could hurt my chances? Honestly, it's very generic. Now we have ChatGPT, and the expectation is that everyone can put 2 sentences together. So the caliber of writing, it's going to be much higher in terms of expectation. So if you are putting together an essay that doesn't really capture your unique experiences, your unique perspective, your unique actions that you've taken in solving the problem, or if it's a goals essay and like how the school is going to support you, that's a huge red flag in an application, because the admission team will consider this as someone who is not really interested in their school and has really just put together kind of a lame essay that didn't really put an effort to demonstrate to them that you really want to attend the school. And to be honest, if you're going through this process, I am a huge believer that you do it right the first time around, right? So put in the effort now to make sure that you are distinctively capturing what you bring to the table, and how the school is going to support you in terms of where you want to go. That will really help them see that you really want to attend the school. So this can be a subject for another discussion, but definitely don't apply to more than 6 schools, 7 schools at max, because it's just, all of it requires a lot of attention, and all of you will have a full-time job as you're applying. So you want to make sure that you are really putting in quality outputs instead of quantity. Right? Instead of applying to so many different schools, you want to really use that time and effort to developing really strong applications for the schools that you are actually targeting, that any one of them that you've applied to, if you were admitted, you would absolutely wholeheartedly say yes to. All right. So that was the last question that I'm going to answer today. We're out of time, but definitely join next week, Thursday. We're going to talk about putting together a timeline. Register for this event to be notified. If you are on our YouTube channel, definitely follow, or any of our channels, follow us to get more insights in terms of the MBA application journey. Share it with your friends who are also considering going through this process. And if you need support, we're always here to guide you further. Until next week, have a wonderful remainder of this week, and good luck to those in round 2 who will be receiving decisions in the coming days.